Hello, everybody. This is Gregsynthwizard, and it is November 15th, 2025, and we've got to talk. We've got to have a long talk, and this video is going to be very, 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 very different compared to pretty much every video that has been uploaded in the past on this channel and is currently still uploaded on this channel. Lots of things have happened over the last several months, and even dating back years, as I will get into the contents of this video fairly shortly. This video was something that I've been kind of toying with in terms of making it. Like, I wasn't sure if I was going to make it. Uh, there were times where I didn't feel I was 100% committed to it or comfortable with it, but after kind of just weighing the pros and cons, I just felt that I gotta say something. I've got to make this video, and let's just hope that things go as smooth as they possibly can in regards to the subject matter and how this video is going to turn out. This video will premiere at a later date, so I'm filming this about a week before it actually will go up onto YouTube. So you're going to see a delay here. So I'm just letting you know on the time frame here. And first of all, before we go into the video, I just want to offer an apology. I'm sorry that you haven't seen very much content lately. Not very many concert uploads. In fact, no concert uploads for the longest time. And just a few vague videos on like how I'm doing and my thought processes and everything. But I wasn't up for uploading shows at that point. There was just a lot of things going on, and I wasn't ready. I was not ready. But this video is going to answer all these questions, because I know there's been some questions on the comments, like, what's with these videos, what happened to the uploads, what's your schedule, what's with the starts and stops. There's a few questions, and hopefully this video will answer those questions. So I do offer apologies for the lack of content in recent months on the channel. So this video is going to be very, very different. I'm just going to be explaining a lot of things, and I just want to preface by saying this is going to be a very long video. Now, making long videos isn't something new. I ranted and raved on topics before, and I've done videos that were in excess of 15, 20, 25 minutes. I've done vlogs. So making long videos isn't new, but the difference between this video and those videos were the ones in the past with the vlogs and answering questions and talking about topics and everything. There was always a measure of like positivity. There was always something good, or full of information, and just like a general overview of stuff. And I try to make the videos somewhat entertaining. But this video is going to be very, very different, because it's not only going to be very long, but I hate to kind of bring the mood down, but it's going to be predominantly a negative video. It's going to be a video that's not necessarily going to be happy. It's not going to be positive, really. I mean, I'll try to put some positive stuff in there, but it's going to be a downbeat, mostly negative video. So I'm just letting you know now, ahead of time, that this is going to be long and negative, and you may hear things that you do not want to hear and may be uncomfortable. But I'm just letting you guys know right now that this is what's going to happen. So if you don't want to watch the video, I don't blame you. So I just want to say that. Just want to be upfront about that. So if you see the title of this video, it's kind of a long title. It may seem a little clickbaity, and I'm sorry if that's sort of the image that it comes off as, but I just want to be truthful, and I just want to get the point across. Just to be frank with you guys and not beat around the bush. Last few years, we'll say last few years. Last few years, I wasn't happy with what I've been seeing. I was not happy with things going on behind the scenes, and I'm not happy with how things were turning out on various social media platforms in regards to Queen. So I'm just letting you guys know that it's going to be a long video, and you're going to hear some stories and things that might just ruffle feathers. And I know I'm going to get heat for this video. I know I'm going to be looked at in a different light by people. And I've kind of wrestled with that mentality over the last few months. Like, what are people going to think? But I feel like I have to do this video. I have to get everything off my chest, and I have to explain things, and I have to answer questions, and also I have to defend and protect people because I wasn't happy with what I've been seeing over the last few years. So buckle up because it's going to be a wild, bumpy ride. So we'll begin by saying that I'm not going to be naming names in this video. I'm not going to be calling out individuals by name or username. Partially that's to, not get as much heat, but I know I'm going to get heat for the video, but it's sort of deflect a little bit of it. But also it's to kind of hopefully encourage thinking, like, oh, is this me? Like, is he talking about me or something? But I'm not going to be naming names in this video, with the exception of a couple instances, but those are going to be more on the positive side of things. So if you're watching this video and you have a bunch of emotions that are happening right now, I'm just letting you know names will not be mentioned, and I just want to apologize if people's feathers are ruffled and they get angry or upset, but I gotta come out and just say what's been going on, and it's not gonna be pretty, but I feel that I have to explain things. So we'll begin several years ago, around the 2016 time frame. So at that point, I was using Facebook. I've kept contacts with people on emails, and I've used Skype, and that dates me right there. I've used Skype and Mumble, so voice services. But apart from those platforms, I wasn't really in any communities, I would say, like close-knit communities. I was on Queen Zone. That would probably be the closest thing. I was on a Queen Zone forum, which was shut down a handful of years ago, and that's where I was at in 2016. And I also would keep in contact with people through messages. And I mainly spent my time not only working on shows, but I would keep kind of like a close knit of friends around when voice chats, just talk about music, Queen, Elton John, and various other bands. But I wasn't involved in any like close, tight knit communities. Probably the forum would have been the closest. But in 2016, I got introduced to Discord, and got used to using that app, and there was a server called the Queen Discord, which, as far as I know, is still up and running to this day. And I joined it, and I gotta admit, things started off really well. It was really fun just to interact with a bunch of people all over the world and do voice chats and all these different activities and topics about the band. And this was before Bohemian Rhapsody came out too, so there's people I've never met, and there's people that said, "Hey, it's Gregsynthbootlegs from YouTube. He uploads Queen shows," and I thought it was really fun. It was fun to interact with people, and show off these shows and say, "Hey, here's this show, and here's these performances," and it was pretty fun. Um, and it was fairly harmonious for the first couple of years. I'm not gonna lie, I had a lot of good times, and my interactions were predominantly very positive, and I enjoyed my time. But all good times eventually must come to an end, and the honeymoon phase sort of dwindled after a couple of years, and I chalk that up to the Bohemian Rhapsody movie. Now, me personally, I enjoyed the film. I know it's not accurate, and I was informed of that at the 2018 breakthrough, the North American Queen Fan Convention, where Peter Freestone was there, and there were special guests, and it was attended by several dozen people, and he said when this movie comes out, because this took place in the summer, so it was a few months before the movie officially was released, and he said, put your historian books away, put your historian mentality away. This is a Hollywood movie. It's not going to be 100% accurate. There are a lot of liberties were taken, but I understood. It's Hollywood. There's nothing new about stretching the truth and inventing things. To sell film and everything. So I'm like, I understand. I'm not gonna be upset over a movie. Taking liberties or anything. I mean, it's not like the first time that's happened. But I went into this with an open mind. I'm like, I'm going to treat the film as what it is, a Hollywood movie, completely separate from any documentary. And I know things are going to be made up and exaggerated and added and deleted. So, and I've seen the trailer, and there was that scene where they're doing "We Will Rock You," and Freddie in the movie had the mustache, and I'm like, but I understood. But so the movie was released in the fall of that year, and it did really well. Um, generated a huge healthy sum of money, healthy profit, and it introduced Queen to a new audience, which is great. Like, looking at it, more people are getting introduced to this band. I love this. The younger generation is getting hooked on this music. The albums are going to be listened to more often, and there's a potential for introducing the younger folk to the live shows. And as someone who's a pretty big live enthusiast, this is great. I could show people live Queen and all these different eras, and showcase how great of a band they were live, and introduce them to deep cuts on the album. So everything on paper sounded great. But then as time went on, not so much in the beginning of when the movie was released, but I would say 2019 was when the cracks really started to appear. At least in my experience on watching comments on social media, and that includes YouTube and Facebook, forums, Discord, you name it. I started noticing sort of a change in the mentality of people, where Queen's music, and specifically their live performances, stuff started to not get celebrated as much. Like, I don't know if it was because the hype of the movie was wearing off, or it was just time, but I noticed that instead of celebrating the band and focusing on the music and being positive, the mood started to shift to where things started to get a little more negative. And at first I'm like, it is what it is. And people do adapt to change, and there's always going to be people liking the movie, not liking the movie, and which is fine. Everyone's entitled to their views. I'm not here to tell you to like the movie or not to. But it just seemed kind of strange that more negativity about Queen, the music and the live performances started to be, you know, started to be talked about a little bit more. And I'm like, okay, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I'll hang around and stuff, and I'll still do what I do, but that's kind of weird. But I also began to notice that during this time, there was also a shift where not only is there more negativity, but toxicity started to happen where I don't know if it's because of the protection of the internet and the whole keyboard warrior thing, but it's just more people started becoming toxic, and I'm not sure if the movie is to blame or if it's the new generation of fans, but I don't know. People just started sniping at each other more and using Gen Z slang that I'm still getting used to that, and and Gen Alpha stuff that I got to look at a dictionary to figure out what some of this stuff is, but I don't know. The mentality shifted after a couple of years on the Queen Discord, and I I have to blame the movie to an extent. I got to blame you know the mentality of some of the fans. I really don't know, and I'm not here to poke at them specifically, but it just felt weird to me, and I do not do well in toxic environments whatsoever. I know it's kind of silly because I'm sitting here, and at that time I'm in my late 20s, pushing 30, and I'm like, you should deal with this. You're almost twice their age and everything. But I'm like, I don't. I never deal with toxicity well, whether it be upfront anger and like someone's being toxic to you, or like the more passive aggressive where they're kind of dancing around stuff and or talking behind one's back, but I'm like, I'll just deal with it, whatever. And it just festered. It festered for a long time, and things never really went back to that fairly harmonious mood that was on the Queen Discord for the first couple of years I was on there. Like not everything was perfect, but it was fairly civil, I would say. I don't remember any like really terrible moments happening. There was nothing that was grossly offensive or anything. It was fairly well contained, and I enjoyed pretty much my whole time during those first couple of years. But I gotta say, starting in 2019, especially pandemic, was when crack started to show, and I just wasn't enjoying myself as much, and it's just there are things I'll never understand, and I don't know if it's maybe me being a little naive, but I I try to see the positives in a lot of things. Like if there's something negative going on, I either try to brush it off or I look at things in a different light, and I'm like, well, let me try looking at it from this point of view. Let me get out of this environment, and I'm gonna focus on this. So I stayed with the Queen Discord, even though I wasn't having the time of my life. But I don't know. It was just I wasn't happy. I really was not all that happy, and during that time frame, there were a couple times where I just I would take a break and I would slow my YouTube uploads down to where I wasn't uploading stuff for a long time, and I would kind of go back and forth between binge uploading, not uploading. I couldn't find a schedule that was really suiting me, and you know part of that was on me, because I got to take responsibility, for myself. I was not exactly in the best frame of mind. I was, I was unhappy with, things going on in the Discord, but I was indulging too much with caffeine and just, way too many, caffeinated beverages combined with, the caffeine pills. So yes, I was using a lot of those. and I was using them to, boost my energy through the day, keep up with work, and actually, to deal with the crap that was going on in Discord. And I know that sounds stupid, but I'm sitting here just admitting, that that's why I was using a lot of that stuff. It was just to cope with things that were going on, because my mindset was, you're in your early 30s, a lot of these users are, high school age, early college age. You'll look really bad if you start going off on them and everything. It's like it's gonna look ridiculous. So I stayed quiet for the most part. I really did not, call anybody out. As far as I know, I don't remember really getting in anyone's face. I might have been displeased by some comments, but I wasn't outright like, hostile or, dressing someone down, on the public discords there. So I was trying to like keep a cool head. That's essentially what I was doing. And in 2022, I recall, I believe during the springtime, I want to say it was March, but there was this big event that happened where a lot of the main users, including myself, we were in this huge voice chat, like something about the state of the server and moderation, and I had voiced my concerns in that event, saying, "Hey, we got to clean this up. This is, there's a lot of toxic behavior. Like this isn't right, and people are getting shut down in the server for voicing their views, and there's a lot of passive aggressive toxicity." And I was mentioning this, and I'm like, we got to clean this up, and we got to get more moderation. We got to get more people. And I was, looking back on it, and this is where, I got to take responsibility. I should have been more assertive. I should have been more upfront, and I should have done a better job articulating my arguments, and I should have, went for, hey, I think I can do this. And I don't remember if I outright said I would like to be a mod, but now if I look back at it now, I wish that I could have a chance to to help clean up what was going on there, because I likely would have stayed or delayed my eventual exit, but no, I wasn't happy, and I was like, I voiced my concerns, and I talked with the admin, and we had a nice conversation. And she's real cool. I have nothing bad to say about her, but she told me her thoughts on the matter, and I understood what she was saying, and I respect her views and everything, but I was coming from the angle of, we got to clean this up. We got to stop this toxicity going on. And so that was my argument the whole time. But, eventually, things were good. There's no heat between us. There was never any heat. So I have nothing but respect for the admin. So no issues there. And, I continued with the Queen Discord. I still did those karaoke events. And that was sort of like my attempt to do almost like self-therapy in a way. Like, man, I got to get everybody together and let's just have fun. Let's just have fun and sing songs, sing Queen songs, sing non-Queen songs. And I I wanted to have a good time. I wanted everybody to just stop sniping at each other and just being angry, and you know, just I hated the toxicity. I hate it. I still to this day I don't understand what makes people be so toxic. Maybe it's the protection of the internet and being behind a screen and a keyboard. I don't know. Or in this case, a tablet or a phone. So there are things I will never understand. But I stuck with the Queen Discord for a while longer, and when it came to about the summer of 2023, I'm like, I'm so fed up. I'm tired. Like, and I was 33 at the time, and I was like, it was just great, Nami. All this toxicity and stupidity going on, and the mudslinging and the the false information being spread around, and like the inability to have an articulate conversation and an ability to figure out what words mean. All that stuff was just grating on me, and it came to a head where I'm like, I got to get out of this mess. So I said to the admin, hey, this is, I'd like to leave on this date. I'm not, I at that time I didn't really say anything. I just said, hey, I'm gonna ride off into the sunset, and I'm gonna let the younger generation take over, because I was not happy with what I saw. I was not happy with things going on. I'm like, I gotta get out of this mess. And me just doing karaoke events and occasionally talking about live performances was not cutting it. Like I could not perform at my best, and it was grating on me. It was an environment where I could not thrive in, and I felt very uncomfortable. And looking back at it now, I should have been more assertive. I should have said something out in the open. But I did not want to offend anybody. I'm like, I gotta get out, because there was no point. So, did the final event, and I left that November. So it would have been November of 2023 where I was gone. And I haven't been back since. So it's been about 2 years. I don't know if it's to the day, but it's been about 2 years. But I felt mixed emotions overall. On one hand, I was relieved to get out of that environment, and looking back on it now, and now that I've been out of the environment and been talking to really good friends, close friends of mine that were helping me see the light, like there were things that I didn't realize what was going on until I was out of that environment, and I'm like, you know what, you guys were right. Guys were right all along. I should have listened to you guys, and I'm sorry for kind of not giving full attention to these matters. And I regret that. I regret not taking them seriously until I was out of the server and I was explaining what was going on. So that's something I have to live with. But it was mixed emotions. I felt relief, but I also kind of felt sadness that, man, I used to have a good time there, but it went so downhill, and I had to get out. So it was kind of a weird day that day, but I'm like, maybe I can clear my head out. So for a while, I kind of laid low. I was trying to get back into the band. Now, during all this time, I really wasn't uploading all that much, and I would do the occasional video. I would start to do the tier maker, ranking the gigs and everything, and that was kind of like the main thing I was doing. But I just my uploading schedule was very, very erratic for a number of years, where I couldn't get into the groove of things. I was losing my ability to focus on shows and to listen to these shows and to jot down notes. Like, I was losing my ability to do it, and I'm like, well, this isn't good. I got to figure out what's wrong. And partly I thought it was me just popping too many caffeine pills and stuff, and so I was kind of tapering off it and trying to focus on other stuff. And some things improved a little bit, some didn't, but I'm like, I gotta find a way. So, and then this is where I made a big mistake. I think I made a big mistake here. I didn't go back to my roots right away after I left the Queen Discord. I wanted to go back to where I'm only interacting with close friends or close circle, and just wanted to focus on the music and everything. But no, I thought that making my own Discord server would solve the problems, and so that was a mistake I made. And I know some people said, no, it was good, you did good, and I appreciate that. But looking back on it, it was the wrong move for me. It was the wrong move to jump right back into Discord so quickly and do my own server and get it all organized. I thought this would fix things, but it turns out I was wrong. It actually made it worse, because the toxicity and the negativity that was on the Queen Discord spilt into that server. And that's when I was really like, this is not good. And things came to a head when it's one thing if people leave your server that say you're on good terms with, but it's like a subscriber sort of relationship. Like you don't know the person, but you know you exchange information and you have good conversations on YouTube and stuff. But it's like a subscriber kind of a relationship. That's one thing if they leave. I mean, it's like it makes me kind of feel bad, but when close friends of yours that you've known for years at this point pull you aside and call you either on the phone or they call you on Snap or want to talk to you on another medium and say, hey, I can't be in your server anymore, then you listen really closely. And I'm like, so there's somebody who I know very well who's a good friend of mine. I'm not going to name his name in this video. I don't know if he wants his name or his username in this video, so I'm gonna protect his identity, but he's someone who I would consider a close friend. He pulled me to the side and explained, I can't be in your server. And I said, oh, I'm like, what's going on? And now, when I say what's going on, that's a red flag on me because I'm like, why would I not be knowing what's going on in my server? But I thought everything was reasonably okay. Pulls me to the side, explains to me, I can't be in your server because of the environment that's there. And I'm like, tell me what's going on. Goes into a whole essay on feeling uncomfortable in the server and just like writing all these bullet points out. And then, he was actually talking to me on voice apps. Like, explain to me, I can't be in your server. The environment is not for me. I hate being in an environment like this where my thoughts and opinions are being controlled by other people. And I'm like, really? Like, I would never do anything to you personally like that. And he said, no, it's not you. It's all these other people. And he started naming all these names. And I'm like, I'm not going to name names here, but I'm like, wow. Like, these are people that have been around for a while and they're doing this. So I go and, point out what's, being said and read back. And I'm like, he's right. He's absolutely right. And that was the first big blow to me where I'm like, man, if close friends are upset at you for your server and not maintaining order and, the stuff that was going on, that really hits home. And I got upset. Like, not to the point where I was like I never got angry at him, but I'm like I felt down in the dumps. But I'm glad he said something to me because I wouldn't have known. And so I'm like, I gotta do something. So, but I kept plugging away at the Discord server thinking things will get better. Well, it didn't. And the toxic behavior that was on Queen Discord just kept escalating. Like, people were like just writing nonsense and sniping at each other, and it wasn't. I'm like, it's one thing if it happens in like another server, but if it's happening in my own server, that's a problem. And I'm like, I don't want to be the guy to start, yelling at people and calling them out like that. But I'm like, it was getting to the point where I'm getting fed up in my own server. That's not good. And it was also further affecting my ability to love the band. And if you can't love their live stuff and you can't love the music, even the studio stuff was getting affected. I couldn't like Queen the same way as I did for years and years and years. And I'm like, this has got to stop. I don't understand. So I don't remember the exact moment when things switched on, but I was talking to an individual outside of Discord and outside of any social media who's big Queen fan, and he's a good friend of mine, and I'm explaining what's going on, and he's like, this is what's happening. And I was explaining, why can't I love the band? Why can't I focus on the live stuff? And he was very adamant that it's not you, it's them affecting you, and went through everything with me. And he said it in a way to where it sort of pulled the wool off my eyes. And I'm like, you're right. You're absolutely right. I need these other voices to help see what's going on. So I just, I felt really ashamed. And I'm like, I gotta stop. I gotta stop this. This has gone on long enough. So then I made the decision, hey, I gotta stop. I gotta stop the Discord. I gotta get off. So I gave a notice, probably a month or so, and I shut my own server down because I couldn't commit to doing high quality service. I couldn't commit to the band. I couldn't enjoy Queen anymore. And it was very heartbreaking and very, very disappointing. I mean, and I look back and I was like, you fucked up. You've got to, you got yourself into this mess at the server and you got to lump it. And I'm like, I agree. So I'm taking responsibility. I should not have done the server right after that, even though I thought I did okay at what I did and organized it, and there were some good conversations. It just, the negativity took over, and I wasn't happy with what I saw in my own server. That's the sad part. So I shut the server down, my own server, in November of last year, and it's been about a year since then. And I let me tell you guys, it has been very, very difficult to try to return to my former glory. And it's taken a long time, but I've been out of these toxic environments for a long time now, and I'd say in the last handful of months, probably back in the late spring, things started to come back a bit more. I started to enjoy listening to Queen's music again, the studio stuff, not the live stuff, but the studio stuff. And then bit by bit, I started, the old enthusiasm started to come back on random live, performance. Oh, I listen to that, like, man, that's a good performance. It's like, I really like how Freddie phrased that line. And, the old enthusiasm started to kind of, spike in some spots. And I'm like, okay, at least I can start to enjoy the music and the band again. And I'm at the point now where the hunger to be able to do things is returning. And my mentality is, I'm not retiring. I'm not retiring. I feel, and I know there's posts I made in the last year or so where I'm like, I'm going to retire on this day, and I'm going to stop after this upload. I'm done with this. All that is because of the toxic behavior that was going on in these social media platforms, affecting my ability to love a band. If you don't love your favorite band and you can't listen to their live stuff without, getting anxious and not feeling right, there's a problem. But thankfully, things are pretty much back where they should be. I feel a hunger again that I need to do this again. And I don't want to, limp out of here with what I have. So I ended up deleting a lot of my uploads because I was not happy with my work, because a lot of that stuff had old sources, bad sources, obsolete sources that don't sound that good, and all the descriptions were terrible. I didn't like a lot of my work back then because I had a different view on things. It wasn't so much like changing my mind on all that stuff, but I didn't like the writing. I didn't have as much detail. There were errors. I didn't like it, and it's only been in the last couple of years where I've truly feel that I'm doing well at writing descriptions. And I have a sister channel, Gregsynthbootlegs, where I do Elton. Strangely, through this whole thing, Elton stuff has never been affected. I've always appreciated Elton. I've always gone back to his work and have no issues listening to his shows and writing about it. So it's strictly Queen. It was a Queen problem. So, and it's, the environment actually. So it's just, I, it was just, it was bad. The experience was bad. And I look back at it, and there were things I could have done better. Actually, a lot of things. I could have been more assertive. I could have stuck up for people. I regret not speaking up for people, not speaking for them, but like if they were feeling bullied and shot down because of having different opinions and stuff, I should have stepped in and said, "Hey, that's not right. Let them speak. Let this user have their opinion on something." I should have been more assertive. I should have called people out. And I look back on it and I regret, not doing what I needed to do to try and help out the community. But I look at it now and it's like that's a long time ago. I'm away from that toxic, behavior, and I deal with Elton, on a full-time basis, and I don't have plans at this time to restart a Discord, because there's already a couple out there, and I don't want to risk, damaging my progress. I'd rather go back to the older style, what I was doing, where I'll talk with Queen and Elton fans that I've known for years, like in a small little circle, like on chats and Mumble and stuff, because we've always had great conversations, and I can't be in toxic environments. That's one of the things that I do not thrive in at all. But I just looking back on it, I am so disappointed in how I handled some things, but I'm also very disappointed in the community, about things I've witnessed over the last few years. Things I recall off the Queen Discord, things that happened on my server, YouTube comments and everything. I am so disappointed in specific people in the community. And again, I'm not going to name shame them right in this video, but you can maybe deduce who it is or guess, or you might think, oh, he's talking about me, but I'm just letting you know that I'm disappointed. And without naming names and stuff, I'll get into some of the stuff that I have been seeing, because I've been kind of vague about toxicity and stuff, but I'm going to start to get a little more specific with things I've seen over the last, I would say, 5 to 6 years. So this is where it's going to get a little more ranty and stuff, but the first handful of minutes was the warm up, and now we're getting into the overdrive mode. So I just want to let you guys know that it's okay for people to not like things that you like, and it's okay for people to like things you don't like. So, and I'll give you an example. My favorite Queen album is A Night at the Opera. My second favorite is Queen 2. My least favorite is A Kind of Magic. And I say that because I love Night at the Opera so much, because I think the songwriting is brilliant. I think the different genres, Queen dabbling was a great move. Beautiful vocals. I love the arrangements, like Prophet Song's amazing. Seaside Rendezvous and Good Company are amazing deep cuts that deserve a lot of love and respect. I just love the effort in that album. I love everything. I wouldn't change a freaking note about it. It's a great album. I love it to death. Same thing with Queen 2. You have, Queen finding their sound on that album with the harmonies. The progressive nature of the album is amazing. White Queen's one of my favorite Queen songs of all time. March of the Black Queen's an epic song. Nevermore is amazing. Seven Seas of Rye. You name it. I love those records. And A Kind of Magic's my least favorite record, because I just didn't think it was very cohesive of an album, because you kind of have the Highlander soundtrack stuff mixed in there with some non-soundtrack songs. Some of the songwriting I didn't really care for, like "One Year of Love" and "Don't Lose Your Head" are tracks that I'm not really too fond of. And then "Pain Is So Close to Pleasure," oh, I'll leave it at that. But despite that, there are some tracks I do like on Magic, so it's not like a complete throwaway album where I don't like anything off it. There's a couple good tracks on there. I like the title track. Prince's Universe is great, and One Vision's great. And so I mean, it's not a total bust of an album. It just happens to be my least favorite album they've done. And here's the thing: it's okay if you don't like A Night at the Opera as much as me. It's okay if you don't have Queen 2 in your top 5 favorite albums that Queen did. And it's okay if you like A Kind of Magic more than me. I can deal with it. It's like everyone's entitled to have a view on these albums. It's okay. I would never come after anybody for not liking A Night at the Opera or putting Magic in their top 5. I wouldn't do that in the first place, but I wouldn't feel comfortable saying, hey, you're stupid for liking Magic. I know people that love the works and would put it in their top 3. I think it's an okay album overall. I wouldn't put it that high, but, hey, you're entitled to like that album. Everyone has their own favorite Queen album. Like Hot Space isn't really my cup of tea overall, but I know some people really love it. And I'm like, hey, if that's your Queen album, more power to you. It's okay. You don't have to be afraid of me. Yeah, you have to be afraid of some people on these, websites, though, that, God forbid you say the wrong album and they start, dressing you down, making you feel like a piece of shit. And it's just, it's not right. It's not right. I wasn't aware that it's so offensive to like 80s Queen music and like their 80s albums and like their popular songs. I didn't realize that was that's an offensive, point of view. And it's a good thing I ain't in politics, because some of the views I've seen where people get shot down for liking 80s Queen, it's not right. And I just don't get the mentality of ripping on people for not liking certain things and liking certain things that are different from you. And through all this, it's framed as being completely subjective. They're putting lists down, like here's my favorite songs, here's my favorite albums. Subjective lists. It's your favorites, the things you prefer. It's okay if your list differs from my list. It's okay. But some of these people just go off like you're not as good as a fan as me because you like this song over that song. Oh, shut the fuck up. Like, you're not. That just shows your insecurities. If you're not secure on people liking something that you don't like, there's a problem with you, not that person. So I'm sorry, but that mentality is very unhealthy. And the funny thing about it is they pride themselves on being a community. Hey, let's all get together and do this, and let's get all the recordings all together and do the best job we can, and let's make a nice, great community. But with attitudes like that, you're not going to have a great community. You alienate people with these attitudes of fragile egos and pushing people away, just because they don't like something, or if they like things you don't like. I mean, I'm sorry, but, the world doesn't revolve around you. And yeah, and if it's considered a sin to like things that you don't like or dislike things you like, and certain individuals, have a problem with that, if it's considered a sin to like that stuff, I'll be burning in hell and fucking Satan in the ass. In fact, if I continue to like things that people don't like, I may be getting fucked in the ass by Satan one of these days. I don't know. Just telling you how I feel. But it doesn't stop there at albums and stuff. It's just the whole mentality is terrible in the community. I got friends who, they're either currently members in the community, or former members, or they left Queen Discord because of issues. They left my server because of issues. And I got friends who they say to me they can't be in these communities anymore because it's unwelcoming and it's too toxic. And I'm afraid of talking about stuff because my opinion isn't good enough for them. That's a problem. That's a terrible mentality. And it's just, I don't like that. It's bad enough that I see this stuff happen, but when friends pull you aside and tell you, hey, this is what's going on, and they tell you about this, it's like it really hits home and it hits a bunch of nerves. And I don't understand where the mentality comes from at all. It's like what have you guys done to earn this supposed right, I should say, to talk down to people? And is it because you found recordings? Is it because you're making an effort to preserve history and go get recordings? I mean, I applaud the efforts on that side, and I'll get to that later on in the video. But just because you're finding things and making an effort to get new sources and potentially new shows doesn't give you the right to behave like idiots. It's like I'm lost here, and I've worked in the album community for a while, and I'm one of the people that are. I work on preserving the shows, but I also try to, talk to people and get contacts to, hey, if there's a new source of this or if there's a new show. And the dialogue has been predominantly positive. I've never had these problems in the Elton circles I've been in. It's been, obviously there's passion discussions. Occasionally there's disagreements, but I've never left conversations feeling dejected and feeling like nothing got accomplished and feeling like I want to end the server. No, it's been good. It's all about the people who you surround yourself with, and there's good people in the Elton community. And I'm not trying to blow smoke, but the Elton server I'm on, it runs pretty damn well. I got a good staff team. We got people looking out for each other. People are friendly to each other, and there's not a lot of issues that go on, and if there are, they message me and we squash it in the comments. But I try to make sure things are okay, and I have a good staff team to help me out too. So things are running pretty well on that server, and it's a pretty positive atmosphere, and people love the different Elton eras. So it's like I like what's going on over there. I'm in a good place with that server, and I couldn't have done it myself. A lot of people have helped out, and we have a good solid community over there, and I like it. But going back to the Queen stuff, it just amazes me, like the stuff I've seen, and a lot of the stuff just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense. Like the behaviors, the toxicity, and I don't understand some of these takes that I've seen happen on these servers, where opinions are getting framed as objective facts, and words like objectivity, subjectivity, fact, opinion, the old definitions are thrown out the window, and it turns into, well, my opinion's right, it's objectively true, and if you don't agree with it, you're stupid. That's the biggest load of crap I've ever heard, in my years of being on social media. I mean, even Stevie Wonder can see it's bullshit. And it's just, it's okay to have opinions on stuff. Like if you don't like some stuff, that's fine. If you like certain stuff, that's fine. And I love the discussions, but there's a difference between different types of discussions too. So, like, if I'm in a discussion with a group of people and the topic is name your 10 favorite Queen songs, when you hear the words favorite, that's someone's personal opinion, their personal views on songs. There's nothing objective about someone's personal favorite lists. That's just their preference. So I know people's lists are going to differ. I can tell you my top 10 favorite Queen songs. I can guarantee you name 20 other people, they're going to have a completely different list than myself. And that's okay. Because in the end, it's music. We all have our preferences on how we want a song to sound and everything. That's okay. Because it's being framed in a subjective way, and there's no point in debating people's favorites. Like just because say like my current favorite Queen song, and it's still it's been my favorite Queen song for a while, is Save Me. Okay. I personally love that song. I love the key. I love Freddie's vocal performance. I love the structure. I think Brian May wrote a hell of a song. It's my favorite Queen song at the moment, and it's been in the number one for quite a while. Now, if someone comes in and says, you know what, I disagree with that. I think Seaside Rendezvous is a better song, and I put that in number one on my list. That's okay. I'm like, okay, what would you like to say about Seaside Rendezvous? How would you frame it? I would listen to what makes them put Seaside Rendezvous, for example, at their number one. I'm not going to sit there and debate their favorite versus my favorite. That's stupid. And I'm definitely not going to pull the card of, well, it's objectively true that Save Me is a better song because of this and this, when the initial list and the initial frame of the discussion is not about being objective. It's about being subjective and naming someone's favorite songs. So some of these people in the community completely miss the point on the differences between words like objective and subjective and fact and opinion. So I don't know if it's the schooling system. I don't know if they're doing this to be edgy or they legitimately don't know what the meanings of the words. But it's so aggravating and makes me despondent to read such drivel about my opinion being objectively better than your opinion because I have this view. No, that's stupid. I hate that so much. If you want to turn people off of joining the community and discussing Queen, that's a good way to start things off, by claiming that you're better than everybody because of you holding certain views. That just makes you more insecure. I'm sorry. The problem's not on them. It's on you. So, if you're watching this video and you've made comments like that, you're part of the problem. You're part of the reason why the community's in the shit shape it's in now. And you're part of the reason why I left. So, I'm sorry. I'm putting it out there. And when we get back to specific moments and specific incidences that I've seen, we got people claiming, like, oh, Freddie's saying this. No, Roger's saying this. And people can't tell the difference between Freddie's voice and Roger's voice, apparently. And they claim to be these big super fans that know all the live stuff and have all the tools and knowledge, and they can't get the basic shit right. Like figuring out who sings what parts, or knowing notes, like mispitching notes, claiming something is off when it's not, or claiming something is on key when it's not on key. And it's like, I didn't realize that Helen Keller was such an influence here, when we're trying to analyze vocals. It's like people overblow their abilities, and I'm not saying I'm perfect because I've made mistakes before, but I don't get mad if someone points out that I screwed something up. Like if I screw up, and if I don't catch it, and someone else, says, hey, you kind of got the wrong, info here. You got this wrong. I'm like, oh, I did? And I go and look at it, and I just laugh it off. Well, you're right. Better go fix it. So, there's no, like, there's nothing wrong with making mistakes. And here's the thing: I've made mistakes in the past, and I try to not make them. Just to make sure my content is of adequate quality. But if if I make a mistake, I'll either fix it if I catch it, or if someone else points out, I'll fix it, laugh it off, say, hey, thanks for correcting that. I don't get mad at that. A good example would be, a few years ago there was that moment with can't believe I'm bringing this up again, but I have to for the sake of this video. The Glasgow C5 incident, where I was wrong about the rock section of bow wrap in the C5 for a number of years. 9 years, as a matter of fact, I was wrong. And it took a better quality source coming out, to say, hey, Freddie actually did sing it. And I heard that, and I'm like, oops. I went and I apologized to everybody that, had said that he was hitting it. And I said, I'm sorry. I got it wrong. I'm sorry about this. I was wrong. I laughed at it. I poked fun at myself. I made a meme where Freddie's in his, Barcelona tuxedo going, I hit the C5 at Glasgow. Suck it, Greg, And, so I could poke fun at myself for, fucking up something like that, and, it's funny, So, yes, I make mistakes, but I try to fix the mistakes, and if they're fixed by somebody else, I say, oh, thanks for fixing it for me. There's nothing wrong with making mistakes. You're not a terrible person, and you're not stupid and dumb for making mistakes, because if you don't make mistakes, you can't learn. I've learned so much over the years from people that are close to the band that, they told me, hey, this is actually what happened. And I look at it, I'm like, you know what, you're right. It's okay to be wrong on things. It doesn't make you inferior to people. It doesn't make you look bad. It doesn't, it shouldn't be an issue. If you acknowledge the mistakes and you learn from the mistakes, you grow as a person. I'm not going to sit here and claim that I'm perfect at all. Things seem so perfect. No, it's like, no, I'm not perfect. I make mistakes still. But I try to do the best I can. And just some of the things I've seen in the community, just they've rubbed me the wrong way for years, and it's more apparent when I'm out of these communities and I look back on it and I'm told specific incidences, and people bring comments to me about what was going on. And also what I don't understand, especially in recent years, is these supposed agendas that happen where instead of being a community where people are helping each other and trying to do the best work that they can, and try to present facts and data and information and be helpful, they would rather make shit up, lie, put misinformation out, disinformation, and just throw their weight around like every word they say is true, and misuse vocal terms. Like, I've never been in a community before where supposed shouting and barking is considered a worse offense compared to not having proper intonation and having worse vocal shape. Like I saw comments on my server, and I've seen some YouTube comments recently where apparently Freddie's Magic Tour voice is the worst voice he ever had in his live career. Oh, he's really bad on the Magic Tour. Oh, all he does is shout and bark. He doesn't have good shows. He has one good show at the start. Just all this drivel that's not backed up by the facts. And it's like, and what disappoints me is these are people who supposedly claim to know these shows when they make so many mistakes and misuse vocal terms and lie. So yeah, apparently Freddie's Magic Tour voice is his worst voice live, and is a worse offense than than the Works tour on a number of dates. It's worse than Japan 79. It's worse than the Races tour in America. It's worse than Japan 76. And it's worse than, some hot space shows. So apparently, let's ignore all the facts about these other tour legs that have objectively worse vocals. Oh, I don't know. More mistakes, more, fighting in worse shape, weaker intonation, objective shit that they don't care about. They would rather lie. So by that logic, I can go out and drive my car, hit somebody, and get off scot-free, but I get chewed at for not wearing a safety belt because apparently a worse offense is sounding rough and shouty on the Magic Tour compared to objectively singing off-key in Japan, 79, or struggling to hit mid notes on, America Races, or horrendous tone and intonation on Works Tour shows. Apparently, those objective problems are seen as not as bad as Magic Tour. It's like, I don't understand that mentality. It's like, aren't you guys supposed to present facts and stuff? Because I'm sorry to say, but your opinion does not trump facts. I'm sorry. It's like you guys don't know vocals as well as you think you do. And here's the thing. I'm not claiming I'm an expert on vocals either, but I at least know what the terms mean, and I stay in my lane. And if there's something I know, I'll present that information, and I will share that information with people. I don't believe in the knowledge is power bullshit at all. That's a very unhealthy mentality to have. I want to share this information. I want to help people. And I have no, issues, sharing information and showcasing sources and everything, because I'm secure in myself to be able to talk. And if there's things I don't know, I go and ask people who do know the answer, who know a lot more about the band than myself, and know a lot more about the vocals than myself. And that's okay. I'm freely admitting I don't know everything. So I go and ask people who do know more than myself. And I have no problem admitting that, hey, I don't know this. Can you please help me with this? Can you tell me if this is accurate? And if feel free to correct me. That's okay. Because I just want to be accurate with stuff. It's so frustrating with the mentality here. And I just, it's disheartening to have a community that used to be, pretty freaking good back in the day, just go to complete shit. And one of my favorite comments that I can recall from, my time on my own server was, I'll leave this name out, but the person wrote something like, "There's nothing left to discuss about Queen Live. We have all the available shows. There's nothing left to discuss." And I'm like, well, that's your fucking fault. No, that's your fault that you can't discuss Queen anymore, because I'm not trying to blow smoke, but I started listening to Queen Live stuff in 2008. Some of these people were in preschool, grade school, during that time, and I started listening to Queen Live stuff in 2008. Started picking on performances on the web there. Started hearing full ROIO bootlegs in 2009. Started collecting them later that year, going into 2010, and started my YouTube channel in 2010. I was not even 20 years old when I started the Queen Live stuff. I'm now 35. I turned 36 in just a few months. I'm old as shit. I'm getting tired of this nonsense with the community not acting like a community, but acting like pieces of shit who think their opinions mean everything, and they think that everything they say is a fact. So I'm sorry, but it's very disheartening to see something like that. And again, referencing something earlier, I'm not trying to blow smoke, but I'm not someone who just came onto the scene and started downloading all these recordings and started, I got to figure this out. No. I've known about most of these recordings for a number of years, so I'm very familiar with the bulk of them from start to finish. So I know how Freddie sounds, and I know what he does, and I know what notes he sings, and everything. So, I know what these sound like, and to see idiotic takes that don't match the recording just irritates the shit out of me. Where people would rather lie and spread misinformation and spread their own agendas around than rather talk about facts. And yeah, and recently I watched the movie Twister, the classic movie from the mid 90s. I've always loved severe weather, by the way. And yeah, I watched Twister recently, and a couple times in the movie, it was mentioned that there's a suck zone around the Twister. Well, the one in the Queen community is way bigger than any tornado featured in that film. The destructive behavior I've witnessed in that community is up there at the EF5 level. It's terrible. It's nonsensically bad. And it's not healthy. The mentality I've seen in the community, recently when I was in my own server and on the Queen Discord before I left, and God knows what it's like now. But if it's the same or worse, then God help me. But having that mentality is not healthy for community, because you're going to push people away, and it doesn't just evolve around the band Queen too, because unless things changed, in the Queen Discord server, there was a section about other artists, and in my former Queen Discord, I had another artist section too, and I think I had a list of artists too. And in my current Elton server, I have a bunch of lists of other artists that aren't Elton that people talk about. But when I was on the Queen Discord server, and my own Queen server with all the other artists, it's like I did that to provide variety, in my own server. Like you guys can talk about non-Queen stuff. It's okay. And I know there was the other artists thing on the Queen Discord, but this one on my own server, I made it a little bit more specific, where you can talk about more artists and everything. But lo and behold, toxic behavior there too, and it didn't matter the band. Like, I saw comments where people, like, one band that kept coming up was Genesis. Like, there were people I know that the Invisible Touch record is their favorite Genesis album, and some people like the Peter Gabriel era stuff more, and which on paper is fine. But then when you have when you have the fucks that think their 70s Genesis album view is better than the 80s view album, and they start going at it, it's like, no, absolutely not. Just because individual A wants to listen to Invisible Touch or Duke over like Peter Gabriel stuff, it doesn't mean that they're worse Genesis fans. They just have a different preference on what they want to listen to. So fuck you for that. And I can go down the list of bands. Jethro Tull. I don't care if you like Aqualung more compared to Under Wraps or Broadsword and the Beast or Crest of a Knave or Stand Up. It's all music. Like the music you like. It's okay to like things I don't like. It's okay to dislike things I like. It's okay. So it's ridiculous, this mentality. And then if I want to go back to the live stuff here, it's very sad to see the live material get disrespected in a weird way. And I don't mean bringing the material to the public and everything. I meant when the material is there, it gets disrespected in a very strange way, and I'm going to elaborate on this. So when I collect audio, obviously I will archive it on a file sharing site for people to download, and I'll upload to YouTube, and I'll write about it, just a general synopsis about it, saying, what I think about it, and, some key features of the performances, like so and so, is a strong performance that emphasizes the guitar playing from this member, or the vocals are strong with the particular section having good notes. Something general like that, but not too nitpicky, and not so specific to where it actually ruins the listening experience. But I tend to be a little bit more. Let's see, what's the word I'm looking for? I tend to be a little more specific and not necessarily nitpicky, but I'm a little more focused on key things outside of the descriptions. Like if I'm talking about gigs on a tier maker project with people, or having like a one-off video about something, I tend to go a little more specific on things on a performance, because there's a character limit, but I want to make it like a general description for things. But I don't get so nitpicky to the point where I pull up a ridiculous list of standards that have to be met in order for a performance to be good. So, like for instance, if there's a performance of, say, Bohemian Rhapsody, and Freddie sings the first verse on all B flats, and generally, he stays in pitch well and everything. That's not a problem. Now, depending on how he delivers the stuff, if it's oversung, I might note something like, I don't know, Freddie's overdriving it a bit, but I'll say, well, the notes are hit and the pitch is good, which is, fairly balanced. But some of these comments that I've witnessed would be like, well, one or two notes are off here, so this performance isn't that good in comparison to this performance where it doesn't have these issues. But what doesn't get mentioned is the other performance that's said to be better has its own issues that are apparently ignored. So that's a problem, because you have agendas being pushed and people thinking they know live material when they actually don't, because there's a difference between listening to a live show and listening to a live show and knowing the terms. So there are key differences there, and some of these viewpoints just boggle me, and I'm beginning to think that if they're this anal and meticulous and soul sucking on performances on music, wonder what happens outside of this. Would they critique somebody getting out of bed a certain way? Oh, you woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Oh no, your left foot was too flat when it hit the floor. Oh, the blanket got tossed off the wrong way. When you yawned, it was off pitch. Are you guys that nitpicky and that robotic and mechanical to where you can't enjoy a performance, even if it has minor issues on it? It's like you guys are not enjoying music. You're just throwing your weight around, and it's overly pretentious, and it ruins live music. It ruins the enjoyment. It damaged my ability to listen to Queen for a long time, and that's studio and the live stuff. So I'm just letting you know that kind of analyzation hurts the community. It hurts the performances. It's a turnoff, and it's a big turnoff for people who really want to get into the music. And it's disrespectful, well, to the audio in a weird way, but it's also disrespectful to other people who want to enjoy the stuff regardless of technical stuff, or maybe people don't want to analyze the stuff on an objective way, or look at it like a science project gone wrong or something. They would just rather listen to the audio as, hey, I want to listen to some live Queen. I want to listen to a show from a tour with good audio quality, and I want to just listen to this, without needing to analyze the shit out of every single fucking note on every single fucking frequency. It's like, you got, if it gets overanalyzed like that, you're sucking the soul out of the performances. and that's bad. That is bad for the live music community, and it affects other people too. Maybe not directly, but indirectly. I'm just letting you know. And it's like, you ever see the process of decomposition? Well, this is what's happening in the Queen community with these live performances and the nitpicky bullshit. It's a the whole the community is a shell of its former self because people who are so high on themselves think they know everything, yet would rather push agendas and throw out random stuff that doesn't make sense with the recording, and nobody calls them out on it. I don't understand. It's like, let's just analyze and nitpick the shit out of a gig, and then when we're done, with it, let's throw it in the corner and let it rot. You know, I've seen I've seen autopsies in real life where a dead body is treated with more respect than some of these Queen gigs. Because yes, in real life, when I was in high school, I did see two autopsies when I was in anatomy and physiology, and yes, it is very interesting, and it can be very shocking. But you know I I enjoyed the experience from a medical standpoint and just learning stuff. So that is true, by the way. So yes, I do like watching medical stuff, but yeah, but on the medical side of things, it's like dealing with all this negativity has affected me in negative ways. And as ironic as this video is, this is almost like a release where I'm able to get all this information out and explain why I'm having a bad time, and letting everybody know why I haven't been uploading, and why I've been making those update videos. It's just I wasn't jiving with what I was seeing, and I needed to leave because, again, as I said a couple different times, I don't deal well with negativity, and I don't understand why people would berate other fans for having specific viewpoints on subjective stuff. I'm not talking about objective stuff relating to vocals and theory. I'm talking about subjective favorites and non-favorites, and what's your favorite song, and what's your favorite key, stuff like that you should be able to freely discuss and have good discussions with people without being in fear of run off of a server, or being made fun of, and I will not have that. I'm sorry to the people that have been affected by that. I'm in the same boat, and there's people out there who don't want to come forward and put their names out there, that have messaged me privately saying, there's huge problems in this community. There are people closer to the band than some people realize, who know about this stuff and don't like what they're seeing either. So that's a problem as well. And some of the takes are oh, they're so ridiculous. It's like, I wonder if some of the members, in these communities think that having extra chromosomes is a good thing. But, without, getting too harsh on them, use the golf score method on that one and take note of that. And it's ridiculous. I don't like what the Queen community has become in the last handful of years. It's not the same community. When I was on Queen Zone all those years ago, before joining Discord and everything, it wasn't perfect. There were trolls, there were issues, but there was more of a sense of togetherness, and the good outweighed the bad. When I'm outside of forums and Discord and just talking with, small group of friends about music, and if I want to be specific with Queen and Elton, things are great because we're all on the same boat. We don't always agree with each other on things, but we always have productive conversations. We never raise our voices. We've never insulted each other. We've never felt like any of us was below anybody. We were all on even footing here, and everybody would walk away, including myself, would walk away from the sessions feeling productive, like we just accomplished something. I'm like, yeah, I learned this, and I didn't know we had this view, but I understand why he thinks it, and I respect that, and I'm glad he said that because I'll remember that next time, when we have another conversation. And unlike these fucks that, if they would spend less time, throwing their dicks around like the meat spin meme, the progress can be made in the Queen community at a very high level at a good rate. There are some truly talented people in the Queen community, and that's what's really disappointing is there's good work being done on the side of getting upgrades and occasionally a new show. And this is one of the few times I'll throw a name on this video. Miles, he does great work with what he does. He'll take shows, he'll meticulously fix them. He'll fix the sound, make sure the sound is good. He'll balance stuff out. He does a lot of good work, a lot of great audio work, and I tip my hat off to him because I can't do what he does because I don't have the same equipment, and I'm more of an archivist slash observer slash I'll write about the shows, and I transfer tapes. That's what I do. That's my main thing is I do all the transferring, and I'll preserve the audio that way and let people hear it. And I may do some basic EQing if I feel that I can do something, but the most I would do on audio is speed correct. Miles has done an incredible job in bringing recordings to life, turning recordings that were fair and quality at best to great. And his work is great, and he deserves a ton of credit. And I credit him as his work as being one of the few good things that is happening in the community today. So I wish more people would appreciate his work. And I wish the focus in the Queen community would be more about, appreciating the recordings and appreciating the work that goes into, getting them and working on them. That should be the main focus. It shouldn't be sniping at each other about, having different views or getting shit wrong on, music and, thinking, oh, I'm right, he's wrong when it's the other way around. It's just, I'm sorry, but it's so frustrating to see such potential in the community get thrown to the wayside because of ego and the poor mentality that's been documented. And I don't claim to know everything about Queen, absolutely not. But I try to be as helpful as I can in answering questions. And I don't care if the fan is brand new and is young, high school age, or it could be an older fan who's middle aged and beyond. I don't care who it is. If they ask me a question, I will answer the question, and it could be a simple question like, "Hey, what song did this come off of? For this album?" Or something theory related, like what key is this in, or what note does Freddie sing? It doesn't matter who asks me or what the question is. I will answer the question, no problem. And if it keeps getting asked to me, no matter who it is, I'll still answer the question. I don't get upset if I'm asked the same questions. I don't get upset on who's asking me it. I try to be helpful and I try to help people. That's one of the main reasons why I wanted to do the Queen channel in the first place. Is I want to showcase these recordings, and I want to help answer questions if I can. If not, I will get the answers from someone, credit them, and then give the answers. And I just want to help people, and I want people to enjoy the audio and stuff. I don't believe in the knowledge is power bullshit, and I would never talk down to anybody who asks questions, because if you don't ask questions, you're going to stagnate. But you can't tell that to some people in the current Queen community, because they'll look at you sideways, they'll insult you for not knowing certain things, and that's if the answer that they're given is accurate. If I'm on a game show like, say, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and a number, and some specific individuals are in the crowd, and I do the ask the audience lifeline, and even if they do give the right answer, I'm still going to use all my lifelines just to make sure the answer is right, because I'm not sure if they're giving me the right answer or not. That's how fragmented and disjointed some of this shit is in the community. Like, people are afraid to be themselves. People are putting on fronts. They're acting like they know more than they actually do. And, the Dunning-Kruger effect is in full effect. It's absolutely ridiculous, and I'm sick of it. That's why I don't want to be a part of nonsense like that. I don't want to be around negativity. I don't want to be sucked into this world of having to conform to specific views and everything. No, I just want to present the data as what it is. And if I have opinions on something, which I make very clear if it's going to be subjective or objective discussion, but I don't want to be controlled. And I want to reclaim my full love for the band again in terms of the studio stuff and the live stuff. So that's my main goal. And yes, I in the future I plan on not only recovering the channel in terms of content and re-uploading everything, it's going to be a whole second run, like a proper second run without stopping. No taking long breaks anymore. I'm gonna re-upload all the stuff with good descriptions that aren't filled with errors, and they'll have the proper info in them. I want to upload stuff with good descriptions. I want to enjoy listening to the live stuff again. I want to have one-off video discussions about certain songs and tours and gigs. And I'm going to continue the tier makers, because there's a lot to discuss about the band, and there still is. I've been on YouTube for 15 years, and I'm still hungry to talk about the band and performances. It's like, there's still plenty to talk about. And if people are claiming, oh, there's nothing left to talk about, I can't think of anything, well, that's your fucking fault. I'm sorry. You're the ones who got yourself into that mess. I never burnt out of the band and the live stuff. Things affected me that prevented me from enjoying it. That's different. And it's just, I'm just tired of it. I'm 35. I'm going to turn 36 next March, and I realized my mortality a long time ago. So I don't want to spend my end life regretting over stuff and being full of negativity and stuff. I want to go out, and I would just want to enjoy the live music again, and I want to enjoy Queen at the level I used to, and being away from all these toxic behaviors and environments has healed a lot of the damage. It's healed a lot of the damage. And I'm just, I'm grateful that I have good friends in my life who they're there for me. Like, they're there for me to vent and to talk to about anything, and they're there to help give a more neutral view to things that maybe my view isn't the most objective because it's affected by something. So I'm glad for those people. So I'm so glad that I have good people in my life to help steer me out of the rough waters and into calmer waters. So I do appreciate those people in my life. So that's pretty much what it is. I want to start a second run, and I don't want to deal with negativity anymore. I'm done with it. I don't have the energy anymore to deal with it. I'm getting too old, and this this video it is meant to just share my experiences that I've seen and witnessed, and it's just it's sort of like therapy to me, because I've never talked about that stuff really in the public. But I feel like I have to be honest, and I have to explain to people why I didn't upload things for a while. But you know, as I said before, I know I'm gonna get heat. I know I'm gonna get a backlash on this. I know I am, but I've accepted it. I accepted it when I first started thinking about the video, and I've been in the mindset of I have to do this video, and I have to give a voice to people that are afraid to speak up, and I respect their privacy and their identity, so I'm not going to name their names, but I feel like I have to do this just so they know that I'm there for them, and it's okay to not share my views on favorites and stuff. So I hope to return back to proper schedule, and that's pretty much it for this video. And hopefully you stuck around through this video. And if you watch it in spurts, I don't blame you. If you didn't watch it because it was too long, I don't blame you either. But that's all for now. Have a good night.